Whenever someone mentions movement in the gaming space, we usually end up thinking about the first kinds of movement games, platformers. The bread and butter of 2D games. But what if we add a timer? Now it's not just about getting from start until the end. Now we gotta start cutting corners.
I cannot believe it!
Doing risky shortcuts and having to find a way to get speed. Or at the very least, not losing. That's cool, but the game will turn boring if it's only a race with no verticality. Then fear not, my friend. We can add some really high platforms. And how about instead of just leaving it to 2D, we can make it 3D? Yeah. I think I know what game you're talking about. Of course! This is a bit about the Glide minigame for Minecraft on all generation consoles, of course! I remember this, it was only available in PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox... Does anyone actually remember Team Fortress 2? Like, seriously, anytime I mention this game in any discussion, I'm instantly the oldest person in the room, and you can start hearing my joints cracking, reminiscing about the golden age of gaming. Sometimes I feel like even Valve has forgotten about this game. Very much neglected and often ignored by its own community, Team Fortress 2 is the house of some of the best movement ever seen in any video game ever. Even at the highest level of competitive TF2, learning movement is an essential requirement in order to shoot your enemies and avoid their projectiles and bullets in just fractions of a second. At this level, it becomes a mind game and solo movements gain great power, as these are what would make or break during a battle. Of course, if you have played any shooter game, you know that just moving left to right will make you harder to hit, but how about we get you in the air? Now, try doing this and see how far can you get. A lot of the times when playing Team Fortress 2, you will be on the air, or you will be forced to be on the air. Now, it's when you have to learn the very basics of how to move in Team Fortress 2. Of course, W, A, S, D to move on the ground, but in the air, this is not easy to do, because you have less impact on how you move while on the air. But in order to get some speed, you gotta air strafe. While you're in the air, just ever so slightly move your camera as you move to the direction you want to go to, using only left or right. And you'll notice that you'll be gradually gaining some speed. If you do it too fast, you will be losing speed. But if you do it too slow, you will not get enough speed to benefit from this. Now, try doing this in real time, and how does it look? Very cool, isn't it? Practice this enough times and you'll be cheating death and getting cool frags any day of the week. Now, if you're playing any of the explosive classes, you have to learn explosive jumping, and that is a requirement if you want to get any good with the class. Explosive jumping abuses the fact that any amount of damage you can receive in this game gives you knockback. Explosive jumping makes it really easy as you can launch yourself at any direction. Once you know the origin of the explosion, you can position yourself so it sends you into the direction you desire to go. Then you jump and activate the explosive. For better results, try to stay as close to the origin of the explosion as possible and crouch at the same time you're damaged. Just of course beware that if you do explosive jumping in a regular match, you are damaging yourself. The game knows that people are speed junkies, and if they see it as a fun way to play the game, then it will be exploited. So, to at least make it easier to play with, the game added practice weapons that won't damage enemies nor damage you, so you can jump at your heart's content. Some of you might be also thinking, how can I make this useful in a real match? If your whole team has to walk all the way to the fight, but you can just use a couple rockets to get there, then you already have a mobility advantage that can also surprise enemies because they might not expect you to be there. That to me is what makes Team Fortress such a great movement game. The fact that thinking outside the box and combining many kinds of jumps will make you an active threat, and it just feels good. But I hear you say, this is awesome, but what if I just want to practice movement without fighting?
Son, you know, once you start, there's no going back.
I know.
Once you begin the path, there is no leaving the path.
I know.
This means total commitment.
I know.
Are you sure you're...
I know.
Neat. We'll start tomorrow.
As far as it is to remember, Team Fortress 2 is a sequel to Team Fortress Classic? The original Team Fortress was a mod created specifically for the first Quake game. The mod was named Quake Team Fortress. You probably already know Quake for being the game that gave birth and popularized a lot of the basics of strip jumping and rocket jumping back in the day. Even though Quake was the game to play at the time, it was still really hard to get into, because the more skilled players learned how to use the movement and the added mobility that weapons allowed. So that, just as in Team Fortress 2, they can get an advantage just by moving quicker through the map and managing to catch people by surprise. The original developers of Quake Team Fortress saw an opportunity to repurpose everything that the original Quake already settled down to turn it into an objective-based game, where even people that did not have the best of it could contribute to an objective. That gave birth to Quake Team Fortress, a project that was later taken over by the community and had many iterations in the next Quake engines. The original developers of the original Quake Team Fortress made a company to later develop Team Fortress 2 in the Quake 2 engine. But around this time, they got hired by Valve to make a port of the original Team Fortress on the same engine that powered their flagship game, Half-Life. Of course, this was a time where some of the other Valve games were born as mods of Half-Life, such as Day of Defeat, Counter-Strike, and Natural Selection, if anyone remembers that. It was named Team Fortress Classic because it was the original vision retained from the original developers that was gonna be the baseline of what would come for Team Fortress 2. Famously, it took 9 years since its conception to become a reality, but apparently that was because they were also working on other projects such as Half-Life 2, Steam, and they also had to do the change from the old Gold Source engine into the new in-house Source engine that today we know as Source 1. If you play Team Fortress 2 in modern day, you might find that only 3 of the 9 classes are the only ones capable of moving really fast, and only 1 without much effort. If you have played the Quake version or even some of the older versions of the old Team Fortress like Fortress Forever, you will notice that the general speed of the game is far quicker than it is in Team Fortress 2, even for the classes that are not focused on movement or mobility. But Team Fortress 2, more than any of its predecessors, is where the real development of explosive jumping and movement really starts. In order to rocket jump, you have to aim where you want the explosion to happen, and at the same time strafe to control the direction you want to get to. The main issue with explosive jumping, particularly in these games, is that because of how the game is coded and how famously odd the engine is, you have to account for a lot of things the more advanced jumps you want to get. For starters, remember that the rocket that makes the explosion is a projectile. It doesn't actually create the explosion instantly, even when hugging the wall. There is a delay of at least 100 milliseconds starting at the moment you click to create the projectile, no matter how small is the distance it has to travel. Moreover, when you get into situations where you have to account for very precise explosion placement and timing, the people that can speedrun these situations look like tool-assisted speedruns. Taking as example, this jump. This section of Jump Academy in Easy Pogo wants you to get over the wall by first pogoing into it and then climbing up the wall without touching the ground after you leave the first platform. This section replicates a very common jump in a lot of intermediate to advanced maps, where you have to climb a wall coming from a horizontal angle, and hence it wants you to learn how to climb walls using nothing but a slow climbing pogo. In order to do these kinds of climbs, it requires precise placement of explosives and your own precise movement. In some jumps, as you build speed, you have to constantly adjust to hit the correct spot. Even in some jumps, you have to synchronize 2 rockets to get more height than usual. You have to shoot a rocket from enough distance so that you have enough time to shoot another rocket as the first one lands to get a better jump. So just imagine how over the span of at least 20 years people have been pushing the limits of rocket jumping, also including surfing, which is another discipline I would have talked about before making this video. People have gotten to synchronizing 15 rockets at once, doing sharp turns while hugging a wall without falling, and even getting very consistent frame-perfect jumps just to cut half a second on some maps. Sometimes breaking records just takes a lot of dedication to not fail in any step of the process. And that to me is the indomitable human spirit at work executing a masterpiece. But so far, this is just rocket jumping. We still have a lot more to discuss about movement in Team Fortress, such as sticky jumping. Sticky jumping might be the hardest movement discipline we're going to see in this video, and that is just because of how high the skill setting of it can be. In theory, it looks simple. Just shoot the stickies, wait for them to arm, and then act. Contrary to regular rocket jumping, the discipline forces you to only be able to use 2 stickies at any moment. Usually, in the regular game, if you get hit by 3, you will die. So, sticky jumping has an extra rule that no other movement discipline really has. That is taking into account your health. As long as you never ever use 3 stickies at the exact same time, you will be fine. Despite this, people have found how to do 3 stickies jumps by doing very precise timing and spacing. The stickies travel in an arc when you launch them, and they need time to arm. So you start experimenting with starting a jump with 2, and maybe launching another one to catch midair as it cooks. Maybe you're already midair and you want to go upwards, using nothing but carefully shot stickies and precise control of your own movement. And there is nothing more satisfying about sticky jumping than catching stickies midair, and maybe even getting 2 synced midair. Of course, when you first attempt a map of sticky jumping, you will easily run into one issue. Doing anything else that is not just a single sticky jump will quickly raise the square floor. Since you have to manually shoot and then activate your arm stickies, this turns into a skill to master by itself. Sometimes you even feel like you need an auto-clicker to do this kind of puzzle, and to complete anything above tier 2. Did I forget to mention that maps also come in tiers? The hardest tiers that currently exist are tier 6 for both sticky and rocket jumping. So maps will also include gimmicks like reflecting your own projectiles, surfaces that won't allow explosions, limited rockets or stickies, teleports, surfing ramps, boost ramps, surfaces you can shoot through, and so much more. But this is just the top of the iceberg. There are even more movement disciplines that are becoming dying art forms that we're going to see. Any TF2 player might be thinking that I have already covered the most important things about movement in this game. You would be right to think that, but I'm about to open your third eye and show you that out there's a world outside of Yonkers. Way out there beyond this hick town,
Barnaby. There's a slick town, Barnaby. Out there, full of shine and full of sparkle. Close your eyes and see it glisten.
If you have ever played Team Fortress Classic or Quake Team Fortress, you might remember that Scout had access to the Concussion Grenade, a non-lethal grenade that was capable of easily getting you to the other side of the map, with its insane knockback but at the expense of disorienting you. Honestly, it's no wonder that the full-time flag runners were the only ones that could handle this concussion effect at high speeds. I enjoy jumping with conch grenades, but holy shit, 1 second of looking at my screen while under this effect and I want to puke. Concussion jumping was kinda niche, as the only reserved roles to use it were the flag runners on Scout or Medic, and if you did not know how to do it, then you were better off picking something else. To perform a conch jump, there are 2 main ways. First, you start cooking the grenade as you press the grenade key, but if you release it, it will throw the grenade. Otherwise, if you hold the key, the grenade will go directly inside of you since you don't really throw it. Either way, you jump just before the grenade explodes and you can soar through the skies effortlessly. The cool thing about conch is that in regular matches you would have access to 2 or 3 conchs at a time, so you can start cooking the next one as you leave one in the ground, and you will be able to steal the flag and bring it back to the base in a very short time.
Has been a gigantic force for Finland during this championship. Great scoop up by Rizzo, Jesus Christ! He conks in and around and has the double ready to conk the flag out.
In regular explosive jumping, you gotta be as close to the origin of the explosion to get as much knockback from the explosion as possible, while also crouching to get even more knockback, because Source Engine. But conch has embarrassed damage falloff. By this I mean that to get the best out of a single conch grenade, you have to be as far as possible from the grenade but not miss the explosion radius. Otherwise, you wouldn't get as much distance as what you could potentially get, or just... The strength of the explosion overrides any current momentum you have, but if you hold the grenade when it explodes, it adds momentum. In Team Fortress 2, there is absolutely no way to get conch working, unless you get some dark plugins to get it to work. But even if you manage that, you still have to find appropriate maps to practice it. Some of the sticky jump specific maps kinda work for conch, but it will be a mixed bag of results, as the abilities you build up as a beginner for conch are really different from the regular of sticky jumping. So, realistically, no one does concussion jumping in TF2 in this day and age. But there are a lot of old maps from Team Fortress Classic and Fortress Forever scattered in forums and old servers that allow you to practice this ancient art. If you're curious about it but also really scared about conking in such ancient games, then I have a better solution that I really think might just be the future of movement in general. So, conk is not exactly dead, but also, yeah, it's kinda dead.
That scout is on, Grandad. Yeah. Yo, what's up?
And if you already played Counter-Strike KC, then you probably already know what this is all about. TF2 climbing is using the default mechanics of the game and applying them to a map specifically made purely for climbing, using nothing but the vanilla movement of your character. So, no rocket jumping allowed, no sticky jumping, no conking, no nothing, just you versus the map. KC, or Climb, has its roots from Counter-Strike all the way back in 2001, as an insane Counter-Strike player named Creeds made a map resembling a treehouse from real life, and the rest is history, which I would still cover more in depth in a Counter-Strike specific video. I want to like KC in Team Fortress 2, but as someone that has actually already played plenty of KC Climber, I hate KC in Team Fortress 2. To the newbies of the audience, doing it in Counter-Strike and TF2 makes no difference at all, but if only you knew. It comes down to the general feel of the precise movement itself, air acceleration, max velocity on the ground, strafing, and even the B-hopping. And if you don't know what any of those words mean, then I don't expect you to understand it even if I explain it to you. I might actually just save this discussion for the Counter-Strike movement video whenever that comes out. But the main appeal of KC in TF2 is that there is a more practical use of what you learn here in a real match. Because no matter the class you pick, just knowing how to traverse along the cheeky spots and props of the map, you might be able to get to insane spots, even as a heavy, needing little to no extra help. Movement is sometimes an underrated skill, but the better you get at it, the more sick clips you can get and the stronger you become as a player.
Hello, this is 16RUK1 teaching you how to...
Trimping can only be done by the Demoman shields, and they only provide you with a forward acceleration for just a second and a half. The tricky part about that shield is that it usually requires ramps and specific kinds of sloped walls that would allow you to translate that horizontal speed into vertical speed to even cover more distances. It has enough depth to deserve an hour-long video, but you will only be using trimping in real matches, and there is no real better place to practice than in the maps you're gonna be playing, since there are a lot of hidden spots. Where it gets messier is in the technical details on how to get optimal trims, because... source. For some people, the best movement class in the game is Scout, but Scout has an advantage where neither Soldier or Demoman can contest, and that is the ground. Explosive jumping requires you to be in the air in order to keep the high speeds, because when you are on the ground, the game gets you to a halt and you are bound to regular walking speed. Scout has a lot of potential for easily getting into higher grounds and quick flanks without even taking self-damage, as it already has double jump and can add another jump with the Optimizer, and it can have a higher jump with the Winger, but can also get another even higher jump with the Force of Nature and the Soda Popper once it's charging random million jumps. I gotta admit that in all of my time playing TF2, Pyro was always my go-to choice when I was unsure of what to play. The variety of playstyles and flashy plays that it's capable of just with the Air Blast alone, reflecting any projectiles, turning them into mini crits to use them as propeller through yourself to get a kill will never get old. But if you can't reflect Pyro for shit, then at least learning how to use the other mobility Pyro has access to is a win. The detonator can give you a small boost to reach opponents escaping, and help you get to unreachable places by holding down the detonation and shooting so you get optimal distance. Imagine using a weapon to shoot enemies. Ew, gross. You could technically use the Scorch Shot to be more annoying, but to get the optimal self-propelling distance, you want the detonator. Thermal Thruster on the other hand has greater capabilities of mobility by sending you very high up and away, even reducing fall damage and allowing you to Goomba stomp the enemy. Although very fun, they lack depth for them to be studied more as how trimping was studied. And there are other even more situational yet new discoveries in this barely legal age game. Recently, it was discovered that uncommon weapons like the Short Circuit is capable of propelling the engineer under very specific circumstances. The flare gun, despite not being an explosive, is capable of doing jumps similar to the detonator, although only in very specific angles and walls. And moreover, Source Jank! momentum transferring and building up, using hitscan and other sources of damage as propellers, insane exploits that have been patched over the years with even more hidden, getting under the map, telefragging, and so much more. Now, you clicked this video because you wanted to know why nobody wants to play this game. All of this is really inciting to make you want to play or practice the movement, right? But why does nobody want to play Team Fortress 2? This is a tale as old as time. After 9 years in development and unveiled to the public behind a small paywall in 2007, to later start receiving updates as there were some things to fix and polish. 1 year later, the first content updates comes in, a brand new weapon and item system. Now the possibilities of custom weapon and cosmetic items are first seen by the public eye. Years down the line, amazing content updates spice up the game for veterans and starters. It was an exciting time to be alive. Even if just the official content was not enough for you, then community servers were also novel and unique, presenting unique game modes and communities of gamers and people that, no matter how they play a game, they enjoy the people recurring the game. Although, remember that the yellow road is not straight, but rather full of curves and obstacles, and sometimes even the path itself is missing. In 2012, we had the introduction of the Quick Play system to be on par with other games that made matchmaking systems their main way to connect gamers around the world. It was not perfect, but they kinda did its job. But while there were upgrades to the system, in development there were community servers abusing of new players with predatory practices, and the game sometimes putting the players into servers hosting an experience very distinct to the original game, leaving players to hope as what even the game is about. By this time, the game had become free to play, but some people were just left with a bad experience because of the wide server experiences, and it took 2 years to do something about it. Something that could have been done from the very beginning. Still, the most fun you could have online. This is the treatment that TF2 in particular has received from Valve, and comparing even TF2 to Dota and Counter-Strike always make TF2 like the unwanted child of the family. After all, Valve Software is an independent company. Any business leader will tell you that focusing too much resources into a sinking ship will likely not see the return. But look at the game today. 19 years later, still available to the public, still running official servers, still has an active community, still has people interested in this fossil of a game that later inspired more trendier games. There is, of course, a lot that I'm skipping about this game's neglect, and it looks so simple to take good care of it, yet Valve simply doesn't seem to care enough about the cash cow. But if it ain't broken, don't fix it, right? Valve has actively ignored the broken state of TF2 for a whole decade. After the Meteor Match update in 2016, the game at an individual level and casual level for especially newer players has simply been unplayable. With a new non-functional matchmaking system, flocks of cheater bots running rampant every match, entire networks of bots specifically tailored to farm in-game drops for a profit, every single one of Valve's games being linked to so many cases of gambling addiction, members of the community cock-blocking and gatekeeping content, broken promises, all of these things and more have made the once greatly unified community very fragmented. And after the Jungle Inferno update in 2017, the game entered in a dormant state, where it had only received cosmetic items and maintenance updates from the community, just to ensure that the game stays somewhat playable at the very fundamental level. Members of the community are basically freelancers for Valve, and some of them don't even get paid. Just what? A lot of people still pick up the game to this day, and can still experience all of the bad things about this game as their first experience. There is not even a proper tutorial in-game of how basic things are supposed to work for anything. Again, comparing TF2 to Dota and Counter-Strike always makes TF2 look like the unwanted child of the family. But this is still a dysfunctional family. Both Dota and Counter-Strike suffer from cheating problems and smurfs to this day. Both Counter-Strike and Dota look like they're getting the better end of the stick since they both have gotten the upgrade to the next engine, and they do look like they're getting at least what seems like content updates despite also getting the treatment of just being milked for money. Even the newer game that is around the corner from Valve, Deadlock, seems like it's running far better than Team Fortress 2 actually is. And it's still just early access. You need to be invited by someone that already has access to the game, and it has no monetization yet. So why is Team Fortress 2 neglected? There are so many ways we could answer this question, but that would be out of the scope of this video. And instead of finishing this video on a negative tangent, I would like to propose an alternative, or at least what I think it's a better solution to the current problems of Team Fortress 2. For at least the movement side of things, I cannot fix the game myself. So, what is the solution? Well, the only real solution to all of the problems of Team Fortress 2 would easily be solved if someone inside Valve would do the extreme decision to put a lot of resources into passing the old Team Fortress 2 into the newer engine, which would facilitate a lot of the tasks that come with dealing with an old engine. But in the current day, we see that Valve prefers to focus their workforce into the newer games and in what they would consider as progress. Maybe developing more the Steam side of things is what they would consider as better progress than still working in old games. Maybe working on their hardware side of things to establish trends in the general gaming industry is a better sign of progress. But they're letting down the people that has allowed them to progress. Gamers, like me. And as much as I would like to not promote any of Valve's games, there is a reason this video exists as part of a series and not just a standalone video sucking on its dick. The community surrounding the Source engine has worked tirelessly to make better experiences that the original games, realistically, cannot deliver. And in recent times, we have seen the rise of a lot of mods taking Source engine games as a base and expanding on them. One of the mods that I'm looking forward to playing, and I wish it was just more active with the updates on its progress, is Past Fortress. Past Fortress is not technically new, but it's just not really known on the broader Team Fortress 2 sphere. This takes the not-so-known pastime game mode and turns it into a more organized competitive playfield, only allowing the classes that have added mobility with a couple limits, and only projectiles with no hit scans in a 4v4 match in tailor-made maps. Usually, to play this kind of pastime, which is just not possible in regular TF2 and far better than the original, you would have to get into an organized match within a Discord, but you have to open TF2. And that is the thing that I just really want to stop doing! But their alternative, as I alluded to before, to even sticky jumping, rocket jumping, and even conch jump is Momentum mod is developed on a later, better supported version of Source by the community, named Strata Source, which was already used to develop Portal Revolution and Portal 2 Community Edition. Momentum mod is on great track to becoming the center of all Source movement, and even possibly getting more movement modes in the future. There's already one-to-one sticky jumping and rocket jumping, conch jumping using the Team Fortress Classic version, accelerated backhopping, yes, from Half-Life, surf, B-hopping, defrag, and KC, and the only reason I even get to make this video is because playing Momentum mod and all of its variety is what has resparked my interest in Source after a long time of avoiding it. For example, something that I have always had the gripe about is how a lot of maps on the Source engine are too dark. Usually, to make it easier, I will have to use a command to get rid of lightning and get every texture to its max brightness. The problem is that this command is usually under cheat commands, and in Momentum mod, it isn't. It actually comes as a toggle by default. I can even easily set checkpoints and save states without needing to mess with binds, crappy server plugins, or constantly have to check the console, all already by default. If you're interested in any kind of Source movement, I cannot recommend Momentum mod enough. Momentum mod is just still at an early beta stage though. The very next update this game is going to have is going to implement voice chat and proper anti-cheat system. Also likely a leaderboard reset, so as soon as the update drops, you can instantly start getting top scores. And even in the future, this game plans to release a standalone social and ranked game with its own leaderboards and its own currencies, cosmetics, and a lot of things. Even though you could technically just mod them in yourself, but it's still just a really good proposition even for casual gamers. The people that have spent a lot of time in Counter-Strike surf servers just running Utopia without actually surfing but just chatting among everyone else knows how pleasant this experience can be, especially compared with how CS2 ruined movement for a long time with Optic. To me, the future of movement games can be Momentum mod, and I want to be there along the way. But I just really hope that if Team Fortress 2 has any significant update or major fixes in the future, I just wish it good luck. The Team Fortress 2 that I once fell in love with is no longer there. Maybe the community mods might respark my interest, but I'm moving forward, and I will keep moving forward. I do not wish to sink more into TF2 unless it's only for Past Fortress and maybe Open Fortress. But apart from that, I am ready to leave behind that part of my life that TF2 was so important to. So, thank you.
And And that is all that love's about.